Hello and welcome to the Sex Within Marriage podcast. I'm JD, marriage educator, coach, writer, and podcaster. And at uncoveringintimacy.com, we offer a wide range of resources to help couples strengthen intimacy in all areas of their marriage. And today we continue our long-standing tradition of answering the questions that are posted to our website. For those who are new, these are questions that are asked on our anonymous Have a Question page. They come with only the context that's submitted to them and no contact information, which means there are no follow-up questions, and the only way they get an answer is by listening to the podcast or reading the blog post when they're answered. I try to answer them once a month, but sometimes I get a bit behind. For example, these are from July of this year, which puts me behind more than a month. For those playing at home, if you like, pause after the question and think of your own answers. If you come up with a different answer than I do, please head over to the blog post. There's a link in the show notes. Go down to the comment section and post it there. That way, others can benefit from your wisdom and experience and ideas as well. With that out of the way, on to the questions. Question 1 writes, depending on the day and her mood, my wife will say things like she's not sure she really loves me or speaks of regrets of missing past loves. But if she's in a good mood, she says she loves me and says how amazing I am. This feels confusing to me as I think marriage, love, and staying away from a divorce is a choice and a promise we made when we got married in hard times or easy times. Do we need help? Do I just need to push through the valleys and ignore the things that she says? I would say yes, you need help. This, I would say, goes beyond coaching and likely into therapy. Coaching is about moving forward together, but she's digging into the past for some reason, either because there's something there that needs to be resolved or because there's something more serious going on. Either way, it doesn't sound like just a rough patch to push through. And I am not a therapist, so don't take this as diagnostic, but these are things I see in people who have bipolar tendencies, dealing with depression, or borderline personality disorder. Could also be just emotional dysregulation or relationship stress. So it could be a lot of things, all of which are beyond the scope of coaching. All right, question 2 is, I would like to know why it is you never advise people to seek God's face for themselves, to teach them what it means to have sex His way and what His intentions are. What about His love for us is supposed to embody and symbolize, because God doesn't give anything in our human relationships that isn't supposed to convey some aspect of Him and His love and how it relates to us somehow that includes sex. Do you ever advise people to ask God to sanctify their sex drives and sync it up with Him and His design and purpose and plan, and then sync it up with each other, or invite Him into the bedroom? Are you teaching people in a way that's helping facilitate their relationship with the Lord, or to lean on your own interpretation of things? The Pharisees knew the word inside and out, but they still didn't know God or His heart, and they weren't leading people to God. God does not intend for us to read the Bible apart from a relationship with Him and seeking Him for understanding. Now, for myself, I believe I'm constantly telling people to read their Bible. I've specifically told people to pray about sex, and I distinctly remember telling people to do so on the Line Within Us podcast. There's a link to that one in the show notes if you want to check it out for yourself. I remember it well because the host, Chris, who's become a good friend of mine, brings it up from time to time that I challenged him to pray with his wife about sex. I also explicitly tell people not to follow me, but to act on their own convictions. I did a quick search of the word convictions on my site and found at least 20 posts and podcasts where I told people to do that just using that exact word. I would bet there are more where I use different phrasing. As well, all my coaching clients know full well that my goal is to have them graduating from needing a coach as quickly as possible, and for them to continue to maintain their own positive growth. I won't even let you book a full year in advance. The most I'll let you do is 6 months, because by then the vast majority of people will turn their marriage around much quicker. Now, do I tell people to just pray about it? No. And do you know why? Because people lie to themselves. You would not believe the number of people who've told me that they prayed and God told them that it was okay for them to have an affair, a threesome, open their marriage, get into the swinging lifestyle, get divorced for trivial things, and more. So yes, pray, but also read your Bible, which I also regularly recommend. And stop rationalizing your behavior when it doesn't line up with the Bible. The whole Bible, mind you, not the one verse you managed to twist to make it sound like you can do whatever it is that you want to do. people quote unquote pray and get whatever answer that they want, and then open the Bible and twist it into the same answer. It's good also, in addition to all the rest, to commune with other believers. It's a lot easier to deceive yourself than it is to deceive a bunch of other people. Now, people come here to do this because they know I won't turn them away. I will give them an answer, even if it's not the one they're hoping for. Doesn't mean I'm right? No. But it's at least a third point to check against what you're doing. So if you pray and God says go for it, and you know your Bible and see no red flags, and then I give you an answer, and the thousands of people listening and reading just let it pass without comment, it's still not a sure thing, but it's at least due diligence. It certainly doesn't have to be me, but when people don't have anyone else in their lives they can turn to, I offer this service for free because I think it's a shame we, as Christians, can't talk about these topics. And that goes for anything. If you have a topic about marriage, sex, parenting, drugs, abortion, hell, or any other topic, even if it's you calling me a Pharisee, the things no one will touch with a 10-foot pole, I am here for it, so long as it's a sincere question. Now, if you have some specific complaint or recommendation, I am all ears, but neither I nor anyone else in our forum felt any of your vague complaints landed. If someone out there is listening or reading does, then feel free to come over to the blog and put it right in the comments where everybody can see it, and I will do my best to answer them. Question number 3 is, so me and my wife have been married 3 years and had a baby about 2 years in, so our sex life hit a bump. But recently, her sex drive has been picking back up, and the connection has increased and become more exploratory and fun. We pretty much have been a missionary-only couple so far, and we've been stepping out to try different things. So we've been doing outer course in different positions, standing, wife on top, and doggy, but we haven't been able to penetrate in any other positions than missionary. She is amply lubricated, and I do penetrate in missionary after trying the different positions. She says it never hurts, just troubles getting started. I think it could be her trying something new as well. Curious if any input or advice. Thank you for your blog and podcast. Very helpful this last year for us. So yeah, it could definitely be worry about trying something new. One of our supporters in the forum had a good idea. He said, get into the missionary position first, since that works, and then try to switch without pulling out. He says that he and his wife do this as some sort of a game like Adult Twister. And I have to agree, we've done the same thing, trying to move from missionary to woman on top or vice versa without losing that genital connection is sort of fun. Other than that, if she's actually willing to try other positions, I'd say have her guide you in with her hand. She'll be better at it than you just poking around and hoping for the best. Question 4 writes, hello, and thanks for the podcast. Married on the 6th year, 2 kids, 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. Our sex life has been a source of conflict. Initiation is mostly on me. Many of my ideas for positions and activities, no fetishes, have been rejected by my wife. Some she has later accepted, but only if she's really turned on. She seems to turn off her sense of disgust, which is sensitive in my opinion, but it's hard to get her there. New ideas often seem dirty or porn-like to her. However, when we explore, the results are usually good, and to her pleasure. But it doesn't really sink in. It hurts me because I feel shame for my sexuality, and I feel rejected. Recently, during sex, I felt like she disconnected again, and I asked what was wrong. She replied that it felt weird that I looked at her vagina during the act, and again said it was porn-like. I understand what she's saying, and it would definitely be a problem if that was my entire focus, but it wasn't. I didn't even remember that I looked. We have eye contact, careful touch, etc. But I replied to her that I love her body, her vagina in this specific case, and that my sexuality was visually stimulated. I told her that seeing her vagina turned me on, and that it would be quite a sacrifice not to enjoy the sight of her body. Maybe I got defensive, but I'm not a platonic lover. It might be a reaction and worry against earlier porn use on my behalf, which is fair. Her reaction still bothered me. It's not a big thing, but should I have a conversation about it with her? Should I avoid looking down there in the next period to not trigger her reaction? Sincerely, Victor. So yes, your sense of disgust definitely goes down as you get aroused. That's normal for humans. I have an entire blog post on that. There's a link to it in the show notes. It's also fairly normal for wives not to initiate or want to explore much in the first few years of their marriage. That stuff tends to ramp up in the second decade or more. And many wives are also quite uncomfortable with being seen naked, especially the more sexual parts, and often especially after giving birth. Add to that trust issues from the past or present porn use and potential sexual shame from growing up. Many Christians deal with that as well, and it can all stack up to be exactly as you describe. Is it healthy? No. Is it understandable? Definitely. Yeah, it could be. But normal doesn't necessarily mean good. Now the question is, what do you do about it? I think a conversation is a good first start. I'd ask what about it bothered her and see where this comes from. Now, there's a good chance she'll just shut down the conversation. In that case, don't force her to have it, but I'd be clear that you don't think it's appropriate for husbands and wives not to be able to talk about sex. Then give her time, maybe a month or more, and then ask again. If she shuts you down again, then push it out a few months. Ask again, and then push it out a little bit longer. I wouldn't keep doing that indefinitely, but giving her a couple years to get comfortable with the idea of talking about sex, I think that's pretty reasonable, especially how early you are in your marriage. But I'd say if you get to year 10 and you still can't talk about sex, something is going on, and I'd say maybe it's time to get some help. As for what to do in the meantime, that's hard to say. It depends on the wife and your marriage. Some will become more comfortable with more exposure to being seen. Others will retreat further. You have to know your wife. All right, question number 5 is, hi, want to start off by saying I'm happy I found your podcast and blog. I appreciate having a reliable Christian-based resource for this topic. My question is, what is your opinion on sex outdoors? For example, my husband likes to have sex in the backyard at night, in the car, or in the woods. It's something that he seems to really enjoy, I assume because of the risk, but I get nervous about it. When it's happened, we are very careful, but my concern is obviously being seen by somebody. Is it something sinful we should avoid, or is it okay so long as we're careful? So this has actually come up a few times in the past. There's 3 posts, episodes 68, 70, and 99. I'll link to them in the show notes. The short answer, I think, is to weigh the risk. You can never be 100% sure. Even if you're having sex in your bedroom at night, there's not an impossibly small risk that someone could crash a car in through the wall and see you. Do I worry about that? Not at all. It's low risk. Now, if I were to have sex in my backyard, would I worry about being caught? It depends on how high your fences are, how nosy your neighbors are, whether you have kids at home, people who drop by to visit randomly or just walk in, etc. My backyard is 10 acres, and so the chance that somebody else is going to stop by is almost zero. The chance that one of my 5 kids will walk into the backyard looking for us, that's quite a bit higher. Now, if we went to our neighbor's property who doesn't live on the property, she's got another 17 acres, my kids never go back there, we almost never go back there, I can almost guarantee no one would ever see us and we'd be okay. However, there tends to be a lot of mosquitoes, so I'm not doing that either. In the city, I mean, there's still a chance you're going to be caught by a guy from the power company reading a meter or up on a pole changing a transformer at night, but it's a pretty low chance. The bigger risk is when there's no reasonable expectation of privacy, when you get into dangerous situations that might involve children seeing you accidentally. Then you may face some serious legal implications that are better addressed by a lawyer than a marriage coach. Other than that, for the moral aspect of it, I would refer you to Song of Solomon, where they have sex in the vineyard. I have no idea what their expectation of privacy would have been, but they also didn't have to worry about a sex offenders registry. So I would say have fun, but be wise. All right, last one. Question number 6 is, just wanted to start out by saying thanks so much for providing a wonderful resource for Christian couples to explore sex in a God-honoring way. You're doing the Lord's work. I'm a married man with a semi-repressed kink for cross-dressing, specifically women's undergarments and lingerie. I'm hesitant to call it a fetish since I don't need its involvement for pleasure. It's just something I'm interested in, stemming from childhood fantasies. I've read your excellent post from 2018 on the matter and found it very insightful. However, I do feel that my situation is slightly different from the presented scenario. as well as almost all the common scenarios I see in online discourse. So I wanted to get your opinion on my situation. Despite my hidden kink, I have zero desire to transition. I have zero homosexual attraction. I have no interest in pursuing life as a woman in public, and I'm actually very confident in my masculinity and manhood. However, in the privacy of my marriage, I've begun to enjoy the idea of pursuing this notion with my wife. For example, wearing lingerie for her, perhaps as she currently does for me. I understand this breaks traditional gender norms, but I'm told virtually everywhere that most things are allowed within the confines of a God-honoring marriage. I could even see this as something that brings us closer together, as it would be an entirely private matter that would not ever leave our bedroom. I'm curious if this changes anything or your views on it. I'm truly seeking God's heart on this and want to be correctly aligned with Him and my wife. So I have little experience with those besides the post that I linked to in the show notes from 2018. So I'm going to defer to one of the wives in our supporter group who has more experience with it. Here's what she wrote. Even if your wife agrees to join you in this, be aware that she may find, maybe not immediately, that she really dislikes it. She can't unsee her husband dressed as a woman. Another thing, in my marriage to a cross-dressing husband, I found that taking one step into the activity leads to going further and further. My husband has said the same things as you, that he has no desire to be a woman and would only want to dress up occasionally in the privacy of our home. Now he has now gotten to a place where he goes out regularly as a woman in public. Over the years, his practices have eroded our relationship. At times, I feel like I hate him for the harm his choices have done for our marriage. I'm part of a Christian wives forum/support group, and pretty much everyone in the group has found the same thing I have. I strongly encourage you to turn away from those thoughts now. It won't get easier for you if you begin acting on your urges, and will likely lead to serious problems. I linked to the support group she recommends called Healing from Crossdressing. It's in the show notes as well. Her testimony is not the only one I've heard along the same lines. So no, it doesn't change my views on it. I have never had anyone come to me that I can recall and say they cross-dress only in the bedroom and it stopped there and went no further and did no harm. I've heard many over the years saying that this was just the first step and now it's tearing their marriage apart. Now, if you want to try to prove them wrong, that's up to you and your wife. But I think you're playing with fire. That's my opinion based on what I've seen. And that's it for this roundup of questions. If you have a question of your own, you can ask it on the anonymous Have a Question page. There's the link to it in the show notes. If you'd like to see people answer in the forum and be part of that discussion of either your question or other people's questions, then feel free to join. Again, link in the show notes. We also just recently added a section of our forum discussing BDSM topics for those interested in either tying or being tied up, dominance and submission dynamics, and more. Only 20 or so have joined that part of the forum. It's an opt-in once you are a supporter. We just launched it this week, but we've had quite a few lively discussions already going on. If you want to be part of that or any of the other conversations with Bible-believing, sex-positive Christians, either because you are one or want to be one, then come check us out for a month. You can always leave if you don't like it. And that's it for today. Thank you to all our supporters who make this possible, for helping with the answers, for helping to proofread my posts, and everything else that they do. It's an awesome community to be in. And that's it for today. We'll talk to you next time.